I'm Devyani. This is Between Sessions, a weekly breakdown of the news, rumors, and racing stories shaping Formula One. This week, all 11 teams completed their final preseason test of 2026 in Bahrain. Meanwhile, Franco Colapinto was surprised by Aston Martin in a bad way. Alex Albon thinks that these regulations will suit Lewis Hamilton the best, and Max Verstappen continues to remind everyone that he dislikes red carpets almost as much as he disliked energy management. Let's start at the newsstand. F1 has announced a multi-year extension for Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya on a rotational basis, meaning it'll host races in 2028, 2030, and 2032. It'll rotate with Spa. While I have never been really attached to the track at Barcelona, I do appreciate the affordability of its tickets. That is paramount above all. I am sad about Spa being rotational just because it's one of my dream tracks and I haven't gotten there yet. And if I don't get there in 2027, I've got to wait. So that's a bit of a bummer. It's an iconic track. History and legacy mean things to me, and I still think Spa produces good racing. You can argue that, Monaco does it anymore. I mean, not argue. That's the truth. But you could argue that there are tracks that the F1 cars are simply too big for, that we need to move on, we need to innovate, we need to change. Spa, to me, is special. I do believe that if they don't change things, if they don't create more fan engagement avenues or hospitality situations, then eventually they'll be phased out, because Stefano Domenicali has made it clear that history and legacy are not enough to keep you on the F1 calendar, especially when they have some places paying exorbitant amounts of money to stay on the calendar each year, whereas some of these older legacy tracks pay less. The F1 Commission met on February 18th and said that they're considering having up to 12 sprint races over the course of a calendar F1 season based on demands from fans and promoters. And my question is, are those fans in the room with us? Are they on the planet with us? Are they in the universe, in the galaxy with us? Who are these fans that want more sprint races? And I will say, the caveat is that if you are attending a Grand Prix in person, I understand why you would want that sprint race, because you want the most bang for your buck. Ergo, you want to see as much competitive racing as possible. The F1 Power Unit Advisory Committee has met and announced that the FIA and the power unit manufacturers have come up with a way to measure how the compression ratio changes from ambient temperatures to operating temperatures, and they've put forth a proposal to change the methodology of the measurement and to make compliance in terms of the compression ratio under that ambient temperature while they're static in the garage versus operating temperature of, I think, 130 degrees Celsius. So that loophole essentially would close theoretically on August 1st, 2026, which is midway through the season. So that the first race that would be implemented would be the Dutch Grand Prix, aka round 14 of 24. And I suppose the question is, are 13 races enough for George Russell and Mercedes to run away with these titles? At least that's what everyone is wondering. Listen, Toto Wolff has thoughts. He said he philosophically disagrees with, as per usual, Toto Wolff has thoughts. He says he philosophically disagrees with what has unfolded and, quote, "This time we were on the receiving end. I guess next time maybe we'll be ganging up against somebody else because we believe it's not right." Next time? You mean in the past? This is exactly what I'm saying. He's acknowledging it right here. Sometimes you're the one who's found the loophole, who's mastered and conquered the gray area, and everyone else is coming after you. Other times, you're the one who's like, that team did. The FIA has announced it's going to evaluate potential modifications to start procedures after difficulties in Bahrain. If you remember from last week, because we've removed the MGU-H from cars, the drivers have to keep the turbo spooled for about 10 seconds in order to minimize turbo lag, and we know that Ferrari and Fred Vasseur have blocked some of the proposed changes, and that's because Fred Vasseur brought this up in an F1 commission meeting, I think last year, and he was basically shot down. Everyone was like, it's going to be fine, don't worry about it. And he said, okay, and essentially is rumored to have done a smaller turbo for Ferrari, so it's less than an issue for them, so they're going to have an advantage on the starts. McLaren this past week to 2 weeks has been framing it as a safety issue, and the FIA has been experimenting, and they gave drivers, I think, an extra 5 seconds once they lined up at the grid, and it did help. There were some successful starts. Here's what some drivers had to say. In a press conference on Thursday, Valtteri Bottas said it's definitely not dangerous or more dangerous than it was before. Lewis Hamilton said it's definitely definitely not dangerous, so we should probably take that connotation away. Max Verstappen said, "You can always start from the pit lane if you feel unsafe." Again, another one-liner. But there have been some people speaking out against it, saying, George Russell saying, to win a race, you've also got to get off the line quite well. And I think the starts I've made this week were worse than my worst start ever in F1. Lewis down in P11 got into P1. At this stage, it doesn't matter how quick you are. George is referring to one of the practice starts in which Lewis was down in P11 and just shot straight to the front. And to be fair, Haas with Esteban Ocon had a similar situation, so it's clear that the Ferrari is more powerful in the starts. Lando Norris expanded on his comments about the 2026 cars as well as Max Verstappen. I will read you the entire quote as I have it, as to not take anything out of context. "No, honestly, I just wanted to say that. I didn't want to complain about anything. I just wanted to say that and see what the reaction was of everyone. So it's been quite an amusing week to see the reactions of everyone, and it certainly made a lot of people comment and say a lot of things, which has been pretty funny. The cars are very different. Are they enjoyable and as good to drive as last year? Absolutely not. Is it still a challenge and a good fun out there? Yeah. I'm certainly not going to change my job for anything else. I still have fun and it's still the job I love to do. But it's certainly very different. Is it as pure? Is it as beautiful to drive as last year? Does it look incredible? Yeah, definitely not. And I agree with Max on a lot of the comments. Probably most of the comments I agree with, but it's not that I don't have fun out there. So there's two sides. I do agree basically with every other driver because I think every other driver has made their comments pretty clear. I just didn't want to come out to the media and complain to everyone on our first weekend back. I want to enjoy my time and just say what I feel. But I had fun last week. I've still been having fun out there now, and I think we know as a championship and with the FIA and Formula One trying to improve the car that we have now, because it's certainly not the purest form of racing. And that's what Formula One should be. A lot of the driving is focused on just trying to get the battery to work properly and less focused on how you as a driver can get everything out of the car. So I completely agree with a lot of the comments. I just wanted to see everyone's reaction for me saying the opposite. So Lando Norris has been conducting social experiments out in Bahrain to see how everyone reacted to what he has to say. And here's the thing, if you go back and look at his statement from last week, a lot of the stuff people were, up in arms about was the stuff about Max and about how if he wants to retire, he can. We get paid millions of dollars. You can't complain, that part. But at the end of that statement, he did still agree with what Max was saying. He was saying, I still had fun out there, but is it the most beautiful car to drive? No. So he clearly agrees with the sentiment of this energy management, the battery working, that's taking away from the driving aspect of things. But also it's been clear this whole time that Formula One, FIA, they don't want these drivers to be out here bashing, the regulations, these cars, before we even get one competitive session in, and it seems like Lando was just trying to abide by that. Stefano Domenicali came out and announced a flurry of things that F1 is considering. Number one being that they are considering getting rid of the 2 practice sessions on Friday and either adding a competitive element to that, doing an extended practice or some kind of young driver running, basically saying that fans and promoters want to see competitive, real action on each day of the Grand Prix. And I get it. If you're buying a 3-day ticket that often costs more than an arm and a leg, you want to get your bang for your buck, like I said earlier. But also those free practice sessions are crucial to teams. They're very important to how they set up their car and their running. That is essential to them. There were times where we didn't broadcast those things, but the fans at the track could still see them. Anyway, my point being, I don't know if are people still wanting to see the cars if it's young drivers driving them? Also, a lot of the races that have F2 and F3, you get to see young drivers driving cars. They're just not F1 cars, we're going to do one long F1 practice. I think the format is pretty good. I'm not opposed to change completely. I'm not saying we have to just do the setting we have now and never change it. I just think let's think through these a bit more. I mean, that's what they're doing, but they seem just what's the next thing we can throw out there, He also said that F1 is considering doing another global launch event like they did in 2025 for F1 75. And sure, like whatever, I don't care. Make them all wear suits, get them on a red carpet, make them walk down that runway with their cars, have a comedian telling jokes at them, whatever. It's very quarter quell, Hunger Games. I like that's the least of my battles. It's fine. Or there are bigger fish to fry, and can we fry more than one fish at a time? Sure, but I only have one pan, so I will be focusing on different fish. Look, whatever. Max Verstappen might not show up because he doesn't like to wear suits and feel important, but that's fine. Stefano Domenicali also said that they are considering adding Turkey to the race calendar because Barcelona is going rotational, so that would be Istanbul Park, and I like Istanbul Park. The last time we were there, it's been 5 or 6 years now, so listen, Turkey 2020 was a good race. I'm a fan. Bring it back. I would love to see Malaysia on the calendar. I know that's probably not going to happen, but Sepang is one of my favorite tracks, so as a part of the new In Her Corner initiative, Turn 6 at Albert Park will be renamed to honor Laura Muller, the race engineer of Esteban Ocon at Haas, and Hannah Schmitz, the head of race strategy at Oracle Red Bull Racing. And I believe In Her Corner is an initiative which partners Engineers Australia with the Australian Grand Prix Corporation. And they are basically doing this because it's International Women's Day on March 8th, which is the day of the AusGP. So I think this is their way of honoring it. And Laura Muller is I believe the first full-time female race engineer. And if you want more, like if you want to hear from her, she and Esteban were on a Beyond the Grid episode with Tom Clarkson last year. It was a really good watch, so I recommend you go listen to that or watch it on YouTube. Obviously our queen Hannah, bow down to her. I believe this is a temporary thing, at least is what it says. It'll be for this year's race. It's tea time, and there's been a lot of rumors and talk about McLaren and where they stand in the pecking order and them losing their advantage from last year. And Andrew Benson at the BBC said that McLaren was not running the latest spec of the Mercedes power unit, so the one that Mercedes was running, but that they will be for the Australian Grand Prix. So that might change, increase, uplift their performance. So we shall see. It'll be very weird because everybody was saying they're going to be fourth fastest. And, like if you're all in the passenger seat, who's driving the bus? Images from what looks to be Formula One and Lego's latest collaboration seem to be leaked. They're of the Ferrari driver's helmets, so that would be Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, and they look pretty cool. As of right now, again, rumored release date is going to be May 1st, 2026 at $90 a pop. I couldn't really get a sense for the scale of these, but I am begging Lego. I don't know what kind of devilish spells you have to conduct, but I would like you to do a Sebastian Vettel helmet Lego. And you have so many choices. And don't do like the regular Red Bull ones. Do a special Sebastian Vettel helmet. Get in touch with like JMD helmet design, do the whole shebang. Personally, I would advocate for any of his Singapore. You could do a Singapore Sebastian Vettel series. Personal favorite, of course, Singapore 2012 with the LED lights and the constellations. He got LED lights banned. I think there's a lot of money here. And by a lot of money, I mean my money. So help. In his latest Viaplay documentary, Max Verstappen was spotted saying, "I'm not the type of guy who wants to be at a premiere on the red carpet. I'm not like that. I don't want to hang around with famous people that get invited, and that's why I don't want to rock up there in a suit and act important while we all shit on the same toilet." Number one, Shakespeare has been real quiet since Max Verstappen dropped that one-liner, although he has been dead for approximately 400 and, 8 years or something like that. No, 410. When did he die? I don't know, 1610, 1616, somewhere around there. Anyway, Max Verstappen has good one-liners, point blank, period. There's really no way around that. If we're actually going to talk about toilets, and you think we all shit in the same ones, talk to the people with bidets. But in all reality, I rarely feel or empathize with Formula One drivers when they complain about having to go to like premieres or fancy events or even doing press, because like those days are theoretically in their contract. Like obviously they don't want to do it. Obviously all a race car driver wants to do is drive, but this is a part of their job. Maybe not the movie premiere part, but these like media days are built into their contracts. Is there a self-satisfying nature to Hollywood premieres and red carpets? Of course. But also, unfortunately, Max Verstappen is important in this ecosystem of Formula One and its growth and being pushed further into the popular zeitgeist, especially in America, right? Or sorry, the US. Like he is an important part of that as the 4-time world champion, like that he's just he is an important part of the F1 ecosystem. It's just the truth whether he likes it or not. And also, all the F1 drivers have to go. I mean, obviously, he can get out of more things than maybe some of the other ones. I also, like, if Max Verstappen wanted to wear skinny jeans that are cutting off his circulation to the F1 premiere, I don't think they're going to bar him from entering. You know what I mean? That's just my thought. Anyway, also, the F1 drivers had to see it twice. Like, they saw it once at that screening in Monaco with those weirdly assigned seats. And then again at the premiere. Maybe they don't see it again at the premiere. They just walk the red carpet. I don't know how premieres work. So maybe they don't watch it. Who knows? Okay, Max, you don't want to go, don't go. Like, that's his prerogative. Let's talk about Bahrain preseason testing. And again, are these numbers, these timings really indicative of anything? Not really, but they do matter in the sense that we get to see some cool technological innovations come about, aka Ferrari and their rotational flap wing situation. So there are things to take note of. It's not completely useless, but we only got to see an hour at the end, and then we're relying on all the journalists doing their live updates. So let's see. On day one, I believe that George Russell had the fastest time. Lance Stroll did bring out the first red flag. He was in a gravel trap. So awesome time for Aston Martin. Lance is saying that they're 4 seconds off the pace. They're spinning into the gravel. Like, Adrian Newey's hands are in his head. It's just not in his... No. Adrian Newey's hands are not in his head. His head is in his hands. Anyway. We got to see the new start procedure trial where they tried the extra 5 seconds and all the drivers were on the grid. Day 2, Kimi Antonelli was on top of the timesheets for Mercedes, so obviously it's going back and forth between George and Kimi. But the coolest part of day 2 to me was Ferrari's rotational flap situation, okay? So basically, to reduce energy sapping drag on straights, the car fitted with a movable front. The coolest part of day 2 to me was Ferrari's rotating flap. And most teams had something similar to DRS essentially, but Ferrari had this upper flap that rotated, I think, 180 degrees. So the upper element was basically upside down when the straight line mode was activated. And they did go back to the regular wing part in the afternoon session, because even Ollie Behrman was driving behind Lewis Hamilton at one point and he thought something was wrong. He was like, fuck, what happened? Oh my god, like, what's going on with Lewis's car? Only to be told that Ferrari is just, on some shit. Fred Vasseur was calling it the Macarena because it goes like this. Oh, anyway. And then the FIA did speak out about it. Their technical director, Nicolas Tombasi, said, "We have, generally speaking, encouraged solutions that reduce drag. That's why the DRS regulations of last year, which were limiting the amount of opening, those have not been maintained this year to give more freedom. And the Ferrari solution, we believe, is okay." Other thing that happened on day 2 was just Aston Martin having a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day, with Lance Stroll's spin into the gravel the day prior, as well as them being like 4.7 seconds off. As a power unit manufacturer, Honda, with no other cars on the grid, they don't have a lot of laps of running. It's just not looking good. A lot of the predictions have them competing with Cadillac for like 19th and 20th. Like, it's going to be 19 to 22. That's the fight. So we'll see. Maybe we're being bamboozled right now, but it's not looking good for them for sure. Next, we have the scroll stop, which is just things that make me stop scrolling because I'm like, what is going on? Rosberg is still very committed to LinkedIn, and I would like to read you his latest LinkedIn post. It said, "I once locked myself in a dark hotel room for a couple of days because of a massive mistake that could have cost my career. I was super disappointed, but instead of letting failure define me, I learned how to reset and start again. In Formula One, you don't get the luxury of a bad week. You get one mistake and it's all over the internet, in the data, and worst of all, in your own head, replaying over and over. But if you don't fix it, you're useless. In life and in business, failure is inevitable. I still screw up a lot. However, I've got 3 great reset tools I use to ensure I don't get stuck in my head for too long." And you know what? I applaud Nico Rosberg's commitment to the LinkedIn grind, okay? I appreciate it. I respect it. Somehow, his F1 world champion gig has been invaluable to his career as a venture capitalist. Really has been. Everything, talk about transferable skills, Nico Rosberg. My second thing, and now I'm speaking directly to Nico Rosberg if you are watching this, get your butt off LinkedIn and put it in a seat in a commentary box. Please and thank you. I would like you to be in Australia. I know you only do 6 races a year. I would prefer if you did more, but I know my personal preferences aren't exactly your priority, but they should be. I saw a video of Kimi Antonelli hiding behind Lewis Hamilton as Peter Bonington, Kimi's now race engineer, Lewis's former race engineer, threatens him with a water gun. Which Lewis is probably just like, what is going on in this team since I left? Like, what are these shenanigans? What is this child doing? And then Kimi proceeded to drink a water bottle of hot sauce. So apparently there's some kind of prank war going on between Kimi Antonelli and Peter Bonington. There is a hilarious Racing Bulls reel out there that in which Arvid Lindblad is holding up Liam Lawson's legs as he walks on his hands, and then Liam Lawson is being called a good boy by Arvid Lindblad. So, things are just as usual in the Racing Bulls garage. George Russell was wreaking absolute havoc at the 2026 grid photo, which I will say looked like it was being taken in a parking garage, very different to the 2024-2025 setup with those big colorful blocks, but it is what it is. Maybe they spent all their budget on the other they spent all their budget on that Damson Idris commercial for these regulations with all the F1 drivers. It looks very cinematic. It is weird to drop an announcement, the way they teased it seemed like they were teasing an F1 movie sequel trailer, but in reality it was just this promotional video. Anyway, George Russell was wreaking havoc because number one, he was asking Lewis Hamilton if he was all loved up. Number two, he was saying, I'm going ass to ass. What? Hello? And then he was attempting to terrorize Lando Norris. So, the usual. On my watch list is the Team Torque episode with Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz. I have been an avid Team Torque listener since 2024. I loved that episode with Alex, Oscar, and Logan. So as always, I will be continuing to watch this season. I did enjoy them giving random people advice about random things. That's one of my favorite segments. Please bring it back, Williams. Thank you. And the other thing is Jenson Button. I don't know if you saw this, but Jenson Button was on this F1 Unlocked video thing, and it was a nice watch. I mean, he talked about how he has this red paddock pass in which he can go anywhere he wants, basically on the grid, and only world champions have this pass, and I think it should be golden. Anyway, also Sebastian Vettel, just be in the paddock. You have a red pass, don't you? Point being, Jenson Button was dazzling in this video. However, the unfortunate set design had his chair in front of the screen that said F1 Unlocked. So it kind of read as F1 Unfucked, or I don't even know what it was reading as, but essentially the interpretation was up to imagination, and with this community, that's never good. It's time for the F1 Hotline, and the only question I have today was what F1 races should come back from the dead. And if we're looking at this realistically, we have to look at the contracts some of these tracks have. So for example, Austria has a contract until 2041. 2041. What? And then Miami, I think, is 2031. Qatar is 2032. So there are some tracks that are locked in. We're not getting rid of them. No way, no how, right? But then you have Zandvoort. This is their last year for the foreseeable future. And let me see. What are the other ones? Japan is until 2029. Maybe after 2029 we can go back to Fuji, although the Toyota Honda of it all might make that difficult, but the backdrop of Fuji is really beautiful. Also, I would like an excuse to go to Mount Fuji. I've been to Suzuka, but I didn't do much sightseeing, so that would be nice. I would love to see Sepang in Malaysia come back. I love that track. It makes for fun racing. We can also do a 2013, Seb Mark reunion situation. I was racing, I was faster, I passed him, I won. Multi 21 said, multi 21. You know what I mean? Like, I think that could be fun. I would also like race in India. I think that would be fun. Bud International Circuit. Anyone? Also, Kailami. Although I think they've been talking about doing a race in. We'll see. But I personally just think they should put Interlagos in every country, and then you could race anywhere you wanted. Just only race at Interlagos, and you could have different backdrops, and then it wouldn't be a problem. Capiche? And that's all I have. We will reconvene between sessions